The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Friday, April 28th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. Yesterday, I played you this clip of Marjorie Taylor Greene attacking Randi Weingarten, who was the president of the American Federation of Teachers, attacking her as not being a real mother because she was an adopted mother.
Are you a mother?
I am a mother by marriage.
By marriage, I see. The problem is people like you need to admit that you're just a political activist, not a teacher, not a mother, and not a medical doctor.
Little did we know that this would be just the tip of the iceberg over the last 36 hours of just the depth, how deeply rooted the cruelty is the point for conservatives. Listen to this clip of, and trigger warning before I play it, it deals with such a level of transphobia that Representative Carrie Seekins Crow, a Republican from Montana, said that she would not intervene to prevent her child from committing suicide if they were trans.
Without surgery, the risk of suicide goes way up. Well, I am one of those parents who lived with a daughter who was suicidal for 3 years. Someone once asked me, wouldn't I just do anything to help save her? And I really had to think. And the answer was no. I was not going to give in to her emotional manipulation because she was incapable of making those decisions, and I had to make those decisions for her. I was not going to let her tear apart my family, and I was not going to let her tear apart me.
This is so pro-life, though. The Conservative Party is the party of life. No, the party of cruelty is more accurate. Take a listen into this level of cruelty. Trigger warning, it involves the usage of the R word, and it involves the mocking of children with Down syndrome by conservative commentator Steven Crowder, who gave us more than one hit of cruelty yesterday. This is just the first. Later on, we'll talk about the cruelty that was released as video was leaked of him being emotionally abusive to his pregnant wife. So this next clip is just the beginning for Steven Crowder, but I want you to just see how deeply cruel and immoral the conservative ideology has become. I'm not saying that this is what conservatism is by default. This is not what you have to be if you are a conservative, but you have to slow down and ask yourself, what is it when leaders all the way in Congress, leaders on the state level, and political commentators, all of the conservative stripes, have this level of cruelty in their hearts?
The world's first Barbie with Down syndrome will give children the opportunity to play with more inclusive dolls.
This doll is breaking barriers by creating the first fashion doll
with
Down
retard
syndrome,
strength. Is this real?
allowing more children to project their future through fashion doll play and imagine what is possible.
Mattel, Barbie's parent company, announced the new figures will soon be hitting store shelves.
Well, here's the thing. They really have been going full bore, and Mattel actually announced plans to expand this in the name of diversity before the end of the year with sickle cell Barbie.
Oh, for the
So that's something they also, look, everyone's...
And in case you may not know who Steven Crowder is, he was just offered a $50 million contract to do this type of commentary for the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire being the company that brought you Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and Matt Walsh. There is a market for this level of cruelty. There is a market for this level of barbarity. And yet and still, these are the people who want to make you convinced that they are the party of Jesus, that they love Jesus so much that they just, they just cry every time they think of the goodness of Jesus, because these are all really good Christians, right? Christian nationalists, to be more precise. These are the people who want to convince you that they are pro-life. These are the people who want to convince you that they stand on morality. But this is who they really are. They claim to be so pro-life that they just want you to give your babies up for adoption and then turn around and mock you for being an adoptive mother. They want you to think that they're pro-life, but then turn around and say they don't care. They would rather you commit suicide than to be trans because it's manipulative and it's going to ruin and upend her life. That representative from Montana. And then Mattel, God forbid, Mattel actually makes dolls that are inclusive of children with Down syndrome, but that becomes a joke for one of the top conservative commentators in the country who was just offered $50 million to join the Daily Wire. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-gender conforming individuals, if there is any question at this point as to where we are in this country, where we are with conservatism, what it has devolved into, the cruelty is the point. The sheer level of trauma that they are willing to inflict not only on other Americans, but on their own children, which is par for the course if you consider these are the same people who are trying to now penalize anyone who tried to protect their families during the pandemic, any school district that tried to protect their children during the pandemic. Oh, by the way, these are the people who still deny that we're even in a pandemic, though COVID-19 has become the third leading cause of death in this country. These are the people who tried to insist that you didn't wear a mask. These are the people who insisted who are now having congressional hearings over why schools shut down during the pandemic because people were dying, because so many children are now having to live their lives without their primary caretaker. So many children have been orphaned because their parents died during the pandemic. This is the level of cruelty that we are dealing with. This is the level of barbarism that we're having to live through. And these people have power. They have political power. They have economic power, and they have social power, and they have demonstrated to us that they are cretins. They are soulless ghouls who prance around the country declaring that they are children of God, declaring that they love the Lord, declaring that they just praise Jesus, and they're going to go to their sanctuaries on Sunday, if they even go at all, and they're going to be crying tears of ostensible joy. But at the core of who they are is a sickening rot of cruel intentions, a sickening decay of sheer barbarity. And if we as a nation, and quite honestly, if we as human beings across this planet do not wrestle control away from these monsters, we will see policies passed, legislation enacted, that will carry out their same sick, twisted cruelty with the force of law. Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder, who I just played a clip of him in the last segment, mocking children with Down syndrome and with sickle cell, and mocking Mattel and Barbie for creating an inclusive doll that had Down syndrome. That same Steven Crowder, you would not be surprised to realize that a man who is that depraved is also abusive to his wife, emotionally abusive. And there is video. I will play the audio from it. You wouldn't be surprised that a racist, cruel man like that would also be cruel to his significant other who has divorced him. And this video that I'm getting ready to play, or rather the audio, was just released yesterday, showing a confrontation between Steven Crowder and his wife, his then pregnant wife, who is simply trying to go to pick up some stuff to leave the house, but he is refusing to allow her to take the car. Now, mind you, he is a multimillionaire who just got offered $50 million from Daily Wire. So I would ask the question, why does he only have one car? Not that you have to have one car. I've had plenty of times in my life where my family only had one car. But this is a method of control. Clearly a method of control, and I will let you listen to it so that you can make the decision for yourself. But the reason I'm playing this conversation, that it represents an intimate moment of cruelty between a husband and a wife is because we are most certainly going back to the time. This is what conservative men want. They want to go back to a time where their wives had no power. They had no power to have even their own bank accounts, let alone the power to divorce them. And as Steven Crowder laments very publicly for the world to see about his divorce, the reason he is so upset about the divorce is because his wife was able to get a divorce without his permission. And now look at how he treats his then wife as she seeks to simply leave the home to go do some errands. He will not allow it. In fact, it gets so bad that at the end of the conversation, he begins to tell her to watch it, because apparently she was getting ready to cross a line where he would have to lay down the law even further. This is the $50 million conservative commentator, Steven Crowder. Trigger warning, anyone who has suffered gaslighting or abuse, this is going to potentially be triggering, so I would suggest cutting it off.
You've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either. Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Steven.
And making it work when you do that. The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
Steven.
There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
Hillary,
Steven?
you give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. Mind you, he is speaking to his very pregnant wife, pregnant with twins. Now, again, normally, this is not a topic of discussion for a political show, the inner workings of someone's marriage. That's just not something that I talk about on this show. But when I see a consistent effort from conservatives to move us back into a place where women are, quote unquote, submissive, right? Where women don't have, that literally are advocating for, I have to pause because it just reminded me that you have people like Candace Owens who's even advocating for women to not have the right to vote. So it's not just conservative men who are trying to move back to this time period. There's some conservative women who want to move back to this time period. And listen to the level of threat where he's saying, watch it, watch it. Watch what, Stephen? What are you going to do to your pregnant wife as he sits comfortably on his patio with his legs crossed and what looks to be a cigar in his hands? He's telling his wife that she can't leave until she shows some discipline. She can't leave until she takes some gloves and gets the medication that apparently is poisonous to people and gives the dog medication that he's more than capable of doing. These little details, again, they're not generally something that I would talk about on a political show. But if you really want to understand the ideology, the thinking, and the cruelty of some of the top commentators in conservatism, and you juxtapose that to the cruelty of elected officials in conservatism, are we surprised at all that we are where we are in this country, where we are living through one of the most insidiously cruel time periods where everyone is targeting the most marginalized? They're trying to take us back to a period where women didn't have liberties. Are we surprised that we're here when this type of thinking and this type of behavior is rewarded with a $50 million contract? There's more. Listen in.
I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, just be disciplined about it, you go, no, but I love you more than life itself. Okay, put on some gloves. No, but I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right, we're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage anymore. I'm going to go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not going to.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm going to just
walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take Betty.
This is who is training up a whole generation of young men, right? The biggest consumers of conservative media are young men. They have intentionally created a brand that is appealing to young boys who are really disappointed with their own plight in terms of relationships. The incel community, I'm not sure if you've heard of them, the involuntary celibate community. This is a group of young men who have found each other, and they rally around the fact that they are unable to have sex. They can't get women to have sex with them. Those are the young men who become the target audience for these monsters like Steven Crowder. He's seen as a big brother to a lot of young conservative right-leaning men. And these are the values that are passed down. This is not just Steven Crowder. This type of thinking goes all the way to their god king, Andrew Tate, who's now sitting in jail because of sex trafficking allegations. What type of society do we expect when this type of behavior, this type of thinking, this type of disposition towards another human being, let alone your extremely pregnant wife who's pregnant with twins, who is honestly in this video looks like she has to be at least 7 to 8 months pregnant, as he sits casually back on his patio smoking or, sucking on a cigar. What type of generation do we expect to raise when they are being raised by cretins like Steven Crowder, Andrew Tate, Sneeko, who just had a video praising Adolf Hitler, part of the same circle of conservative men who are raising an entire generation of conservative boys. This is most certainly the type of future that the modern conservative man wants. They want women who will know their place and get in line. And even if you are 8-9 months pregnant, go out there and do all of the chores while I sit on the patio and smoke a cigar.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. I have to make a correction. I completely and totally mispronounced someone's name yesterday as I was reading our new patrons list. I said, welcome to Brenda Williams. I should have said, welcome to Brendan. Brendan Williams, thank you for becoming a patron. I couldn't do it and not give you a proper shout out. Come on, everybody. Now, you too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family, and I will correctly pronounce your name if you go to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, none of the commercial interruptions, and you get access to our patron party that happens every other week. Patreon.com/The BPD Show, and we will be back after this commercial break. Unless you're Brendan, who has ad-free content now.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Yep. Welcome back. Yesterday, 88-year-old Carolyn Bryant Dunham died in Mississippi. She is the woman who falsely accused Emmett Till of flirting with her many years ago, which led to his brutal torture and lynching. We all recall the images that his mother, Mamie Till, requested be shown of his face and the type of brutality that her son at the age of 15 endured, all because this white woman decided to falsely accuse him of flirting with her. She was never tried. She was never held accountable. She lived a long life without ever being brought to justice. She got to die with her grandchildren and her family surrounding her. Emmett Till didn't make it past the age of 15. This matters because especially for me, because I believe in justice, not as a matter of action here on this planet. Justice in terms of things that we must do. We must act to receive justice. But I also believe in justice as a spiritual concept, something that must occur in some form or fashion at some point. But this person got away with it and lived a full life. She's not alone. There are many people in this country right now who have gotten away with murder, lynching, assault, just outright cruelty to Black people, and they are afforded the opportunity to live their entire lives never being held accountable, dying at a ripe old age that they denied their victims. Now, mind you, in this particular case with Emmett Till, it was many years later that the government decided to finally start holding people accountable. And there was a warrant that was issued for this woman. That warrant was later found in the basement of a courthouse many, many years later when she was already in her 80s. And yet and still that warrant would never be served because, well, she was somebody's grandmother at that point. And of course, we in this country, we're not going to put an 80-something-year-old woman who is fighting cancer. We're not going to actually bring her to justice, are we? Not in the United States of America. Not when this country has mastered the art of getting away with murder, specifically the murder of Black people. So no, I never really had a full expectation that she would be brought to earthly justice. Not at her ripe old age. No, because America, that was the point. The point was to let her get away with it as long as they possibly could, to the point where our system would refuse to hold her accountable, because they know full well justice delayed is justice denied. Conservatives are really in rare form. This is like the high holy season for their particular brand of bigotry. I want to play a clip for you from Ohio, where during a hearing discussing banning gender affirming care, one of the public commenters brought up demons, discussing that anyone who is Hindu, Muslim, or Jewish were possessed by demons. Take a listen into this exchange.
Oh, it was fast, but did you just call our Hindu, Muslim, and Jewish members demons? I heard you say if they did not have Jesus Christ in their heart.
If you don't have the Holy Spirit inside you, there's a phrase you can't say, Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. And if you are open to those other gods based on that faith, you're allowing other gods, non-Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh gods, to possess your physical form.
Follow up. So
that would be described as being giving access to your physical form. You're the mystery, hidden from angels for generations, the hope of Christ, hope of God, Christ in you. So if you're not down with that, so to speak, if you're of another religion that's not of that, you've given access to non-godly entities to make your decisions.
Representative Liston, could you bring this back to HB 68, please?
Well, so I'm concerned that he's calling our members demons and saying that that's why we support this,
Not
or we are
demons.
against this
No,
bill.
we're all hopefully human entities, but like what you allow to rule your spirit, your soul, and a body, right? And what you allow to rule in the spirit controls your physical soul and your body if you're in order. But a lot of times your body's in control, uses the spirit to feed its energy. It's kind of a medical physical conversation. I'm not calling you demons. I'm just bringing up the fact that you might be possessed and making decisions without the discernment of God.
All right, and I will just say on behalf of my members and those we represent of other religious backgrounds that any opposition to this bill, I will strongly say, is not from possession by demons.
Let me just say for the record that the Christian faith does not require us to make enemies out of people who do not subscribe to the Christian faith. In fact, there are many scriptures that speak to our responsibility to live peacefully amongst those who don't believe. We are instructed that there is a time where the wheat and the tare shall grow up together, the lion and the lamb, that we are to live in coexistence with our neighbors. There is no biblical requirement for you to go around and ostracize people who don't subscribe to your specific version of Christianity, because let's be sure that guy will most certainly say that I'm demon possessed as well. But when you use Christianity as a tool to get political power, you run headlong into this type of twisted ideology, which seeks to make enemies out of everyone who does not believe the way that you specifically believe. And it requires you to take up action and eventually take up arms to crush the so-called infidels. This is religious extremism. This is what happens when people so confident in their very specific particular interpretation of scripture. And again, actually, let me stop that sentence mid-thought and go a different direction. This is what happens when you use religion as a bludgeoning tool to get political power, full stop. And I don't care what particular religion you are. This is not just germane just to Christianity. All religions have been used in this fashion. But here we are in the United States of America, where this is being presented as testimony, as justification to explain why some people would support allowing gender affirming care. They must be demon possessed. Right. The language and the escalation of do you have would anyone expect a Christian soldier to have any reservations about doing harm to someone they consider to be a demon or demon possessed? Right. This is a license for violence. This is creating a justification in the minds of people who believe this particular and very specific brand of Christianity. It creates a justification in their mind for why they get to use violence against everyone they disagree with. Remember, this is just the starting point. This is not the end point for them. We're not at the culmination of what Christian nationalism is going to do and become in this country. We are just at the beginning. They're just getting their footing and their grounding. They're just now getting confident enough to even identify themselves as Christian nationalists, the same religion of Adolf Hitler. They are just now getting their footing. And if they are allowed to stand up with this level of bigotry, and this is where they're starting, where do you think they're going to be in 20 years? Where do you think this movement is going to be in 30 years? Where do you think this country is going to be by that time? This is why I make the appeal so hard for believers, for Christians, particularly Black Christians, particularly those of us who subscribe to liberation theology. I push so hard for us to get involved in politics, but not only get involved in politics, but to come out swinging against these Christian nationalists, because they are not our allies. In fact, they are our enemies, and they have chosen to make themselves our enemies. They are the enemies of good faith. They are the enemies of the people of good faith. They are the enemies of coexistence, and they are not done. They are just beginning. And that's why we must call them out for who and what they are. They are religious zealots who seek to use their Christianity and their particular brand of religion to harm other people, because that's how they gain political power. and they are currently at an impasse in their ideology where they cannot gain any more power unless they conjure up violence against every community that they don't approve of. That's my time. There's no after show today because tonight we will be having a live show. Be sure to tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.